What's that small guilt that haunts you? Years back I used to visit a website where people would occasionally post little small fiction pieces, short stories, or poetry or even songs, even though that wasn't the purpose of the site. This one kid of 17 would post these comedy zombie stories, and while the melodramatic horseshit posted by prominent users would have endless comments of adulation and love, this kid's stories went unnoticed except by me. I would always post a little comment to let him know someone appreciated it. Others started commenting in time, but he would always send me a PM letting me know he posted one, and thanks for reading when no one else did. In time I began to get busy with life. I found a job I hated but paid exceptionally well. More I worked, more I earned. I also met my now wife. I stopped commenting. I still got the PMs, but generally either ignored them, or replied with a thanks for letting me know. Read the ones I missed soon. One day I log onto the site after about a 2-week absence. In my inbox is a message from the kid that's unusually plaintive, asking if could I please read the latest story, as it might be his last and he'd appreciate the feedback, and if he didn't see me, thanks for reading it meant a lot to him. I ignored it, and didn't log back on for another good while. Eventually I log in one weekend, and think fuck it, I'll read and stop being a dick. So I read them all and enjoy them immensely, they were genuinely good. So I PM the kid, letting them know how good they are, and keep writing. I don't hear back. Couple days go by, and I see someone he spoke to on the site chat room and ask if anyone's seen the kid. There's one of those chat room pauses where it goes from lines and lines of new text to stop. I get a private chat pop up with a link to post. I read through and it's a post by the kid's mum on his account saying he passed away a few days ago in his sleep after succumbing to cancer. I suddenly remember a while back he posted saying that his cancer had returned, but he was doing okay, but at that point he hadn't posted any stories, and he was just another username to me. I felt shut. I still feel shut. I still don't watch zombie things because it reminds me of how if I'd have spared an hour I'd have probably made one of that kid's last days. The lady asked me if her latte was decaf. It wasn't. I looked her square in the eyes and said it was. I am a monster. The customer ordered a medium and I gave him a large. I've soiled the Krusty Krab name. Soiled it. I'm going to run away. Run away and find a new daddy. Soiled it. There is a place in hell just for people like you. There probably is a Starbucks in hell. Yeah, it's located next to a Starbucks. I regret blowing my grandfather off so many times when he tried to call. He just wanted to talk and I was too busy for him. He died about 2 years ago and still feel bad because I know he was lonely and just wanted to be a part of his grandson's life. I just wanted to let you know that your comment made me get up and get dressed to go see my grandmother. And then you changed your mind and sat down to comment. Nope. I'm working on a jigsaw puzzle with my grandma. I read it from my phone. One of my earliest memories is when I said to my parents, I love mommy more than daddy. I think I was trying to express that I felt closer to my mom as she was the one who stayed home to take care of me while my father worked. My mom quickly told me that that wasn't nice to say. She didn't need to. I could tell by the crushed look on his face. I sometimes wonder if he remembers that day like I do. I want to tell him it isn't true. Go tell him. If he doesn't remember, I'll bet it still makes his day, even if he doesn't look like it did. Do it via text so it's not awkward. I was on an elevator, and for fun I pressed every button. Suddenly, the most innocent, nicest looking old man steps on. His voice ushered, going down? And before he finishes that phrase I run off with horrible embarrassment. Guilt. So much guilt. You are truly a monster. I thought my dog was going to be okay and was so sure he'd come back from the vet, so before he left I took a nap. He never came back. I slept with my back to him while he was dying on the floor. I'll never forgive myself for that one. Small guilt. Small guilt. Your username makes me feel weird about this post. My dad's mother died when I was very little, probably 4 or something around that. At the time, death was a ridiculously new concept. When I heard the news, It was nearly incomprehensible to me. People could die. My dad had a mommy like I had a mommy. Mommies could die. I remember sitting on my mother's lap when I was told the news, and my dad was standing in front of us. I remember repeating over and over almost automatically and incredulously, "Your mommy died? Your mommy died? Your mommy died?" I'll never forget the look on his face, and I cringe in spite of myself whenever I think about how awful that must have been for him. Just your kid bleating out something like that while the wound is still fresh. In high school I was extremely jealous of another student who would flirt with my boyfriend. At the time I thought magic wicker works, so I cast a spell wishing that she'd go away and leave me and my boyfriend alone. She died a few weeks later of heart failure. I regret that damn spell, not that it did anything but that I wished her ill will, and it makes me feel like shit to this day. I got in a spat with my friend and ended up being the embarrassed one. This friend had cancer, but he was doing well. That night, I had a weird compulsion to pray to the devil that he would die a painful death from cancer. But not soon, no. I prayed that he would get better, his family would have hope, and then the cancer would spread again and he would die miserable. Guess what happened? I'm so sorry. But we did make up, and those were just thoughts. But still, I wish I hadn't thought them. I'm going to hell. My mom and dad went to visit my great-grandmother about 2 years ago. They asked me to come, but I refused because I thought it was going to be boring. Typical 12-year-old at the time. She died 3 days later. At that time, I hadn't seen her in about 5 months. I feel guilt every time someone mentions it or if I think about it. In my 7th grade Spanish class, there was this guy that got picked on because of his attitude, way he dressed, etc. Stupid petty stuff. One day I thought he was being annoying, and so I turned to him and said in the bitchiest voice ever, "Nobody likes you." It's been a couple years since then and I still think about it and wonder what would compel me to act like that when I know how much words can hurt. Not my proudest moment. Yeah, you suck. At least you realize it now. I realized it back then, right after I said it. The blood rushed out of my face and I just sat back in my chair thinking to myself, WTF did I just say? I had unprotected sex with my drunk best friend who were engaged at the time. I know, stupid decisions, we were both horny drunk teenagers. She became pregnant and rushed her wedding. We never talked about it. I don't know if she doesn't remember that night or just pretend it never happened. Now 7 years later, she lives happily married and have the cutest 7-year girl, whom I am pretty sure is my daughter. Never have the courage to confront her and clear things out, because I don't want to ruin her life or cause her troubles. Someday I will have the balls to tell her. Don't tell her. She knows that it's a possibility. Honestly, if I were her, I wouldn't want that to be brought up. The ramifications could destroy her happy marriage, ruin your friendship, and tear apart that little girl's world. Be the best damn friend you can be to her and her husband, as well as the best uncle you can be to that little girl. I have 2. The first one is stupid, but I can't forget about it. When I was 5 or 6 I had a pet caterpillar. I would take him everywhere with me in a little box with a flat lid. One day I was playing with him and I somehow lost attention of where he was and shut the box. I cut the caterpillar in half. That one still haunts me because it was my first experience of death and the first time I was entirely to blame for something's pain. The second one is less forgivable. I had a pen pal on one of those websites where you send things to a child with a terminal illness. The child sent me a reply to one of the letters I'd sent. I wrote out a detailed response complete with gifs and a homemade card, and I forgot to send it. When I found it 6 months later and logged back onto the website, the child had died. I will never stop feeling guilty that I caused a dying child even slightly more sadness, wondering why their pen pal never responded. I am a terrible person. I was cleaning my cousin's room with him when I was 7 or 8 and ended up pocketing a little toy boat. I never told anyone about it, but it haunted me for years. My mother and I had a falling out. We didn't speak for about 2 years. One day, about 4 months ago, my brother called me asking me to take her to the hospital because she was off of her meds, on cocaine and not doing very well. I refused, stating that the only time she communicates with me is when she needs something. She went into a seizure and passed away 2 days later. I think about her every single day, and I hate myself for what I didn't do. I miss you, Mom. I was about 10 years old. I would play RuneScape all the time, and I had a really good friend that I made on there. If I remember correctly, his name was some variation of Albert. Now Albert had a couple million GP, and for some reason he gave me his password to switch something onto his alt account. A few days later I went to sign into his account wondering if he had changed his password, and he hadn't. I got my player to a secret location as well as his player, planning on doing a drop trade. So I dropped his money next to ladder, and signed out and back into my own player. At this point I went to click on the pile of money that popped up on the ground, but instead accidentally clicked on the ladder. When I got back to the spot, someone else was on top of the money. Lost it all. If you ever see this, I'm sorry, Albert. This tormented 10-year-old me for months, and I want you to know that I never saw that money again.